This video is about reading books of leadership and how to assimilate all that information that you come across in those books. Specifically, in context of the course that you are taking, this video is about how to write an effective or powerful book summary. I have already shared with you information about the reading habits of great leaders. And I'm not talking only of leaders from the past, but also in the present. How, for example, the CEOs and the top leadership of Fortune 500 companies read on an average one book per week. You can contrast that with the number of books that an average American adult reads, which is less than one book per year. And often the quality of that book is also not very good. So again, one of the articles that I had shared with you, the HBR article, if you want to lead, read, right? So it is important, extremely important that you start reading. Here are some statistics that I found about the differing reading habits of people from different countries. I'm not 100% sure about the accuracy of this data because I couldn't, find the original source of the data. Nonetheless, because this is something that was published by Statistica, which is a reputable organization dealing with statistics, I think the data should be fairly accurate. In here we see that US doesn't fare very well when it comes to, or people from United States don't fare very well when it comes to reading habits. They read about 5 hours 42 minutes per I think this is per week data. Yes, per week. India has the highest 10 hours 42 minutes per week. Again, even though we don't know the quality of the books that people are reading, at least in terms of quantity, we see that there is US is not faring well compared to many other countries, and this is something that every aspiring leader needs to fix. You need to improve your reading habits. As I have again mentioned in context of sports, for example, if you want to be a great golfer, you practice golf, yes, but you also have to self-study about golf. You have to study, you have to read books on golf. Same applies to leadership, and it applies even more to leadership because golf relatively is a physical skill. But when it comes to leadership, it is involving multivariate skills, social skills, wisdom, knowledge about the culture, knowledge about people, knowledge about the economy, knowledge about economy at the macro level as well as the micro level, knowledge about finances. So a whole host of knowledge and insights are required in order for you to be effective leaders. So this is something that cannot be developed only by taking a class or reading just one book. So you have to engage in a lot of self-study and enhance your knowledge about these various aspects. And only then can you be effective leaders, especially when you are aiming to function at higher levels of leadership. Here's a quote from Harry Truman. He had actually handwritten a lot of notes while he was the president of United States. So these were published in the post-presidential papers. So he says, readers of good books, particularly books of biography and history, are preparing themselves for leadership. He goes on to say, not all readers become leaders, but all leaders must be readers. Right? So you can see how much of emphasis he is placing on reading in order to become a great leader. Uh, as he emphasizes, just because somebody is reading does not automatically mean that this person is going to be a great leader. But if you want to be a great leader, having a great reading habit will definitely aid or will definitely help you in becoming a great leader. So in other words, reading can be seen as a necessary condition for effective leadership, though not a sufficient condition. Okay. Most of you would have heard of the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, a great philosopher. This is what he says about reading, or more specifically about not reading. He says, the art of not reading is highly important. Not reading is an art. Essentially, what he's saying is that it is important to know what to read and what not to read. So you have to choose very wisely. Specifically, he says, this consists in not taking a book into one's hands merely because it is interesting to the great public at the time. In other words, don't just pick a book because it is very popular, because everyone is reading. If we go by popularity, probably what's that, 50 Shades of Grey is one of the highest selling books in the last few years. But that is not a quality book that is going to help you enhance your wisdom, or is going to help you enhance your knowledge about being a great leader, right? So pick your books very wisely. He goes on to say, one can never read too little of bad or too much of good books. Bad books are intellectual poison. They destroy the mind. In order to read what is good, one must make it a condition never to read what is bad. For life is short, and both time and strength limited. In other words, you have to place a lot of emphasis on the quality of books that you read. Now, I realize if you do not have much experience of reading, it's going to be difficult to find out real high quality books. And those are the situations where then you may seek the advice from more wise people or people who are better read than you. And sometimes you just have to start with quantity. You have to become a voracious reader, and as you read more, you figure out what is high quality books, what are high quality books and what are trash. And then that's how you develop your reading habits. Nonetheless, it is important that you choose your books wisely. Now, choosing your books is just the first step, because many people, or most people I would say, don't know how to read. They read books. I'm talking especially about non-fiction books, like it's a novel. At the most, they highlight different passages from the book that seem important while they are reading. But what research shows is that that's not an effective way of assimilating the knowledge that is there in those books. These are some examples of handwritten notes. These are my notes. I just took some photographs of it so that I could share with you. So anytime that you're reading something of value, it could be a book, it could be a journal article, take handwritten notes. And the notes need not be tidy. As you can see here, there's a lot of arrows going from one point to another. I mean, part of it is covered here, but I have boxes, arrows, and connecting different parts of the information, trying to make sense of it. Uh, but that definitely helps you understand the information that there is in the book. That helps you assimilate all that information, all that knowledge. And only when you deeply understand what you are reading can you gain value from it. Otherwise, even a quality book uh, would go waste if you are not processing all that information wisely. So, especially for your book summary assignment, then I would strongly urge you to take handwritten notes while you are reading. Okay, the notes doesn't have to be elaborate; they can be very uh, uh, short. They can be very visual. Like you can see here, I'm making boxes and trying to make sense of the material, but this ultimately helps you understand the material really well, and then you can summarize the book better in your own words. The next point that I want to highlight may seem contradictory, may seem paradoxical. Uh, I'm saying that we are all visual creatures. Evolutionarily speaking, we are more visual creatures than creatures who read texts. Even the initial texts were more in pictorial form. The hieroglyphics, for example, they were in pictorial form. We are very visual creatures. So, in order to make sense of text, especially text that runs into pages after pages, into hundreds of pages, it can be very beneficial if you create a mental map of all that information. You see this in most crime detective kind of movies. The detective would create a map on his wall or her wall to make connections between the evidence that he is gathering. And that's what actually helps him or her solve the mystery, solve the murder mystery. He then makes those connections which he had initially not recognized. So having a mental map, or more specifically a mind map of the material, is very useful. And you can do this, of course, by hand, like when you're writing, or you could use a software to create mind maps. And this is what I also do a lot when I'm reading any book or article, research article. So I'm currently reading this book, Literature and Leadership. And in fact, some of the things that I shared in this presentation today comes from this book. So, but as I'm reading this book, I'm creating this mind map of the different ideas. The software that I use is it's a free software. It's an open source software called Freeplane that allows you to make mind maps. So what do mind maps do? It helps you organize all this information into a more coherent form. Okay? It gives a visual representation of how the ideas are separated and how they are connected with each other. So this is a mind map in making for this particular book. You don't necessarily have to focus on the specifics that go in here, because that is related to the topic that I was reading. But you can create your own mind maps when you are reading your textbook, when you are reading the book for this assignment, or any time that you're reading any book that is of a non-fiction category. Okay, that will then help you understand all the ideas and how they're connected with each other better. In fact, when you're writing a report about the book, as you would do for this assignment, things are going to be much more easy if you have organized the information or the knowledge from the book in form of mind maps. One of the things that I ask you to incorporate in your summaries is the use of headings and subheadings. And you can see you have different levels of headings here. Like this can become level 1 heading. So this would become level 1 heading, and we can have 2 level 1 headings. Then we have level 2 headings. So within level 1, I have 2 subheadings. Similarly, here there are 2 subheadings. Then I can have level 3 headings. So several level 3 headings for here and some level 3 headings. And that one can go even further down. So we also have level 4 headings and so on and so forth. So anytime that you're organizing your material written text through headings and subheadings, it becomes very easy for the reader as well to understand what it is that you are writing. So mind maps will be very helpful also when you write your paper. Now coming to the book summary assignment, it's pretty simple and straightforward. I am asking you to identify 3 big ideas from the book that you are reading. The book may have 50 ideas, the book may have 100 ideas, but you don't necessarily have to summarize everything. In fact, I don't want you to summarize everything. I first of all want you to identify any 3 ideas from the book that resonated most with you, that got you excited. And then you summarize only those 3 ideas. You elaborate and summarize only those 3 ideas, not the entire book. And also remember, this is not a book review kind of assignment where you are making commentaries on how well the book was written. No. Especially for this part of the assignment, you are only summarizing those ideas. Okay, identifying 3 big ideas and then summarizing them. So pretty simple and straightforward, right? Now, a couple of things to keep in mind here is you paraphrase those ideas. You do not repeat the exact same words that were used by the author while you are summarizing. That would give the indication that you have actually understood what the author was saying and not just copy pasting. Okay. Now, this does not mean that you cannot quote directly from the book. Yes, you can quote, but do it sparingly. Sometimes the author may have written something in a very powerful way that you would like to be shared in your summary. And in that case, you give it in quotes. And of course, cite the exact page number from the book that you used in your summary, right? But use it sparingly. And the last thing that I will mention is use headings. Use headings and subheadings. Now you need to follow the APA format, APA 6th edition styling for your assignment. And the APA style allows for 5 different levels of headings and subheadings. If you see this example here, we have level 1 heading here, and then we have level 2 headings. We have 2 level 2 headings, and the paper itself will have many more headings and subheadings, but that's an example. Now this helps organize all the material in a much coherent form. So again, I'm not expecting that you have 5 levels of headings and subheadings. You may need it. If you need it, then use it. For most papers, 2 or 3 levels of headings and subheadings will be more than enough, right? But especially if you compare that with the mind map, this is again going to be very helpful, using headings and subheadings to organize those 3 ideas. So each of those 3 ideas will have the level 1 heading. Then as you are elaborating further on each of those ideas, there may be subcategory of information which will be organized through level 2 headings and level 3 headings. Now, how you format it is something that is shown here, but then you can also refer to Purdue OWL website for formatting of these headings and subheadings as per APA style. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind. The how long your paper has to be, all that information is there in the rubric that I am sharing along with this video. So use all that information, and I look forward to reading your book summaries.